this morning. Okay, here we go. We're on air. G4 Guitar Network Teacher Chat today. David Hart here. What we're going to do today is talk about how to turn your worst students, those students that either are just not following your policies, not working out for any reason, whatever the case may be, and turning them into your best students. So really trying to understand what you can do, because the more you're able to do this, turn those students who are really making your business, your life difficult, or they're just not going to get anywhere doing what they're doing. What we want to do is understand why they behave that way and what kind of things that you can do, rather than just giving up on them too easily. I know there are cases of students where, you know, despite our best efforts, we're not going to change. We can't change everybody. We know that. But we want to make sure that there's only a small percentage. I found, I actually did stats on it, and I found it was only about 3% of students who I couldn't actually get on board the program. And so, if you've got more than about 5% of the students who are coming in and enrolling into your schools, and you're not able to get them onto the program, then it's probably something to do with you more than it is to do with them, or at least that you're an equal player. There's something that you can do that can be changed. So today what I've done, and any of you guys can jump in at any time, but I've really got Daniel here today so we can talk about, because he mentioned that he had to let some students go, and I know some of those students probably really needed to go. And there's also this thing of where I think we've all been in those kind of relationships where it gets to a point, no matter what we do, it's not going to improve, because the damage has already been done. The people kind of treat us in a certain way. We treat them in a certain way. We react, they react. Their marriages and relationships all the time break down where there's just no turning back. You just got to walk away and let it go, and that happens. The best time to establish any relationship is in the beginning. If you don't do it right in the beginning, it gets harder and harder and harder as you go along. So, in a sense, even though Daniel, using the term, culling some of his students off, there was probably a lot of them had to go. So I'm not going to say that they weren't to go, but what we're going to do is make sure that we don't get there. It's all about prevention, and try and work out how they ended up in that place. And I know that you mentioned there were various reasons, so let's just dive in. Daniel, if you can give me some examples of maybe if you just start off with one of a student that you had to let go and why you had to let them go.
Sure. Yep. So the first one that I let go over the past couple of weeks was a guy in his 40s who started lessons with me, I think, how long ago? About 8 weeks ago, and it took him about 8 weeks to get through his 5-week intro kind of thing. And at the end of that, he asked if I could do fortnightly lessons, because he felt like he wouldn't be able to practice enough week to week to get the work done. And I basically said to him, look, I understand, but I can't really do that. I can't give you a spot on my timetable fortnightly, because timetable is pretty full as it is. So it's kind of hard for me to say yes, I'll take a fortnightly lesson, because that's a slot that someone else could take every week. So I kind of said to him, look, if you don't have time for a weekly lesson, you probably don't have time to learn guitar at the moment. So maybe give it a couple of months and see if your calendar clears up a bit, and then come back and talk to me then.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. And that's kind of what I would call not so much a culling, but more of where you sort of just said to him, look, this is the way that I operate, and if you can't fit into that. So I get that. That's not a big issue for me, but we'll still look at it anyway. We'll still look at how we could have done it differently, because ultimately, if you can turn at least 90% of your students into long-term students, your business is going to thrive, and you're just going to grow so much faster, and you're going to grow a reputation as well. People, what starts to happen when you start to take students who, people have certain kind of characteristics and personalities, and I can remember a student I had some years back where his girlfriend actually rang me after he'd been learning with me for about 8 months or something, and she said, I just wanted to call you to thank you because my boyfriend gives up everything. She said, this is the one thing that he's stuck to, and I don't know what you've done. She said, but I'm just amazed because there's everything else he takes up for a month, fishing and cooking and all these different things, karate. And she rattled off a list of about a dozen things, and he never stuck to any of it. She said, so I know it's you. I know you're doing something, and the fact that she said that was, obviously I was very grateful for the compliment, but it was understanding his psychology and picking it from right from the beginning and getting him to commit and playing, to his ego and all sorts of things, whatever it took. I made sure that he stuck to it, and the group teaching obviously helps as well, because once they start having other people that they're learning in the group with, we all have a little bit of competitiveness in us, whether we want to admit it or not. We don't like to. It's part of our evolution. We don't like to feel that we're falling behind the pack. So when we're in a group and the group's moving forward and there's momentum there, we feel this kind of obligation to stick with and stay with it. So a lesson every second week is not possible if you want to stay up with the pack. You've got to stick with it. So what he did there really was negotiate your terms. He came back to week 7 or 8 or whatever it was and started to negotiate the terms of his enrollment with you. So if you go back, do you think there's a point where you could have done something differently to sort of get it?
I can't think of a point, but that doesn't mean there wasn't one. I mean, I feel like for me, the first lesson that I do is I generally try and take the time, or I'll put their very first lesson in a time slot where I'll have a little extra time available to me so that I can really thoroughly and clearly explain all of the policies and all of the different bits and pieces that go with the G4 method and all of that kind of stuff, so that we're super, super clear on that, yeah. So that I can have a big talk to the parents if they're not adults and all of that kind of stuff. So I feel like I was pretty clear about it, but maybe I wasn't clear enough. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and look, I can tell you now, even after years and years and years of teaching, I still have these situations where I realised I must have missed something here. There's something that I didn't do, and the more I kind of drill down on it, then the more I find it. I think in terms of, say, a performance, you get up there and you play your pieces, and then you just have that one song with that one solo where you realised you missed your timing, or there was something you overdid it. You're a bit nervous. You put in too much. Or you get to the end of it and you think, damn, that's not quite how I wanted it to go. So it's not it's not a perfect world, and unlike performances, we're often dealing with unknowns where different people react in different ways. So you get that student who talks too much in the lesson, so you don't get a chance to actually get your message across, or there's someone who seems to just have a kind of they just don't connect well with you. You just feel like this person doesn't really, they're cynical or they're skeptical, or they're just not interested in your way of doing things. So I understand there's all these sort of things that we do, but the more that we look back and the more we sort of think, okay, what is it that could possibly have been missed there, the more you start to discover them, and then when you do it, you have the second, another go, because what happens is, that same kind of personality or that same kind of experience reappears, but next time you've got some different ideas and you can try and see what works. So let me just throw it to the brain trust here, to the other guys, and see what they would do. Because Jeff's only just joined us, I'll throw it to Jeff first. Jeff, what would you do in this situation? What do you think could possibly have been done differently or missed?
Well, it's a little different for me at the minute because I've just joined G4, and I've only actually got about 3 people who are actually kind of going in the G4 method at the moment. So I'm in the course of A, finding new people, and B, kind of like gradually trying to persuade people to transfer over. I mean, I've actually had this business of one guy coming and doing every other week, and I've actually got somebody who does like fortnightly. Now the thing about him is he's like a really loyal student, It comes all the time. He's very slow at learning things, and I know that he does practice a lot. So, maybe for him at the moment that's pretty cool. But as the G4 thing develops, then obviously there could be an issue if you want to try and get him into groups or anything like that. But I'm sticking with him because I want to try and get him up to speed if I can. He's one of these guys who's very shaky on his playing, and it really does take a long time and a lot of persuasion to get better, and it's not because he doesn't practice. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that, so the problem with, and the reason, and you'll probably understand this anyway, but the reason that kind of student doesn't work is simply because they block out a time. So if they're paying you even, $35 or whatever per half an hour, you still have to block out that time unless you get another student who's going to come every second week, which is hard to get someone who's going to fit in that same time. But then that brings your hourly rate down, and it ends up it's just a job. You don't run a business. You basically just buying yourself a job, and the more that you sort of compromise on the model, then the more, because this is rampant all over the world. I see it everywhere. Music teachers who are among the lowest income earners across the board. Musicians apparently don't earn much more than people on unemployment on average. So we really are, and that was something that I learned years ago, and I thought I'm not gonna be in that bunch. I want to make a decent income out of doing this. So it was little things like that sort of made me. So in a sense, what's happened is that the student has really got a good deal. They've got the deal that suits them, so they can come every second week. They kind of, there's less urgency to practice because they're only coming every second week. They sort of think, oh yeah, I've got another week yet before I need to see the teacher, so I'll put that stuff off. And look, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions, and I'm all for doing a little bit of charity work, and I put it as charity work because there are certain students who, I had two students that I taught, one who had suffered from severe depression. She had come out of hospital, and I looked after her, and I really just wanted to take care of her. So it wasn't about that her parents. She was in her 30s, but her parents said that this was the best therapy for her, was coming to the lessons and having help. But I knew she couldn't be in a group. She actually tried a group, but it just didn't work. And then there was another guy who also had depression, and he became very paranoid. He felt comfortable with me, but as soon as I put him in a group, he freaked out. And the first time I put him in a group, he didn't come back for 2 months, and his parents rang me and were very sorry. And I actually wasn't that aware in the beginning, but then they told me. So, but I wasn't teaching either of those students privately to make money. It wasn't about the business. It was just me wanting to do something for those particular students. And I figure that if you give a little bit of your time for that, that's okay. There's no problem with that. But don't confuse it with your business model, with building your groups. That's the important thing. So okay, cool. That's all right. I'll just go to Ruby. Ruby, as far as sort of inducting students and avoiding this problem, because we don't know exactly what Daniel's done, so we can't really go back and analyze everything that he's done here. Let's not do that. Let's just sort of say, well, what would you do with an adult to avoid that, Ruby?
Kind of a hard one for me, because all of my students so far have been really enthusiastic and cooperative and keen. Luckily, I guess, but sooner or later, I guess I'll experience one who isn't.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the confirmation email that gets sent out, I basically took the standard one and just formatted it a bit. And it's very thorough. And from my point of view, everything that they need to know and the conditions of teaching are all in that email. And it's kind of like that whole fine print thing. We're all given fine print all the time, and most of the time we never read it. But that doesn't mean that we're not accountable to it if we sign it. And I think it's just going to be a matter of reminding people, look, this is the program, this is how it works, these are the conditions, this is what our expectations are.
Yeah.
And, you know, generally, under most circumstances, people are just going to have to fall into that. But having said that, I guess there are always going to be people with special needs. And I think I am going to come up against it fairly shortly, because I've just enrolled a guy who's a bit of a self-starter, and he's taught himself a whole lot of stuff off the internet. He's really keen, seems like a good student, and he's motivated, but he's also a shift worker. So right off the bat, he's saying, look, I'm not going to be able to commit every week. So I haven't quite figured out what to do about that one yet.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly taking on board what everybody's saying about, you know, a slot I'd really like to give to someone who's consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good. And I think the email, and that's the takeaway there, is that the email should really, and I know Daniel, I'm assuming Daniel sends a confirmation email to each of his students. So so it's whether or not, of course, they're reading it, whether or not they're signing on for it, whether or not they think it's just you know, blah blah blah, and then they turn up to the lesson and do whatever they want. And so with adults especially, that, you know, most of us as adults, we live in a customer service oriented world. So when we go somewhere, we feel that we're the customer and we're to be looked after. We should get what we want. But the reality is that that's actually a myth. Most of the time we don't get exactly what we want. Most of the time we fall into the business parameters, whatever they're offering. You can't go to McDonald's and ask for a medium rare hamburger. It doesn't happen. You can't go to Starbucks and ask for something that's not on the menu. They'll just say, sorry, we don't have it on the menu. I'm sorry. You know, there's every business has certain parameters that they work within that makes their business work. And I notice this especially in Japan when I go there, because the businesses are all very systemized. So they're very friendly, they're very polite, the service is fantastic, the food is always consistently good. But if you go off the system, they're lost. They're like, you know, one quick example, I was at the airport and I was down to my last coins, and I just wanted to get rid of my last coins. This was a few years back, to buy something, and I think I was short, what the equivalent of about 2 cents. And I said, look, I'm just short 2 yen, is that okay? And the girl said, no, I'm sorry, we need the exact money. Okay, that's your system, you know, there's no variance of it. Whereas we know in Australia, people would go, don't worry about it, no problem. So, but that's the thing, is that what happens if I just sort of take a step back here, is that it's the old, they take an inch, give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And so very early in when you start doing your lessons, even talking on the phone, you'll start to see signs of the student trying to negotiate what your terms are. Now, it doesn't mean that you go, no, 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 no. You do it in a very polite, you acknowledge what they want, but then you in the nicest possible, politest terms, you say no, we don't do it. And you know that there was a post I put up a couple of weeks ago about, you know, the power of no, and that is your business. It's the power of saying right from the beginning no. And generally, if you have to let a student go after the intro or into the group lessons, it's because they've been eating away at you inch by inch. You've been allowing them to have small little, you know, takes on the compromising on your policies rather than calling it at that time. Once they know that you have a system and compromising your system is actually showing a lack of confidence. It shows that you don't really believe in what you're doing, that you actually, okay, well, yeah, if you can come every second week, that means that every week is, maybe there's some validity in that, maybe it can work. So if someone said to me, can I come every second week, for me to say, well, not really, but if that's all you can do, okay. That's confusing. That's like, well, either it is or it isn't, you know, like, where do I stand? We need to be saying to people, the reason we don't do fortnightly is because what happens is that your fortnightly, there's not enough, there's too much gap between each week. I need you to be here every week. I need the consistency. If you don't have the time to come every week, then I can assume you don't have time to practice every day. You're that busy that you don't have the daily time that it takes to learn guitar. This is a commitment. This is a high priority. What I'm looking for are students who place learning guitar as a high priority, not as a 6 or 7 down their list of things they do. And by doing that in the beginning, giving them that feeling that you're looking for students who place guitar as a high priority, then you will attract those students in. And you'll also, at the time of inquiry, they'll go, okay, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I'm not really that committed to learning guitar. And it's, again, I always come back to the relationship. Imagine meeting someone, a partner, and them saying to you, look, I can only see you once every 2 weeks because I'm pretty busy. And you, at the beginning, for us guys, you see a beautiful girl and she says to you, I can only see her 2 weeks. You go, wow, she's gorgeous. I'm in love. Whatever you can do, sweetheart, that's fine by me. And then that goes on for the first couple of months, and you go, look, can I see you next weekend? No, it's every 2 weeks. Remember, that's the deal. Oh, but I want to see you sooner. And then you start getting frustrated and angry and going, look, you mustn't really like me if you only want to see me every 2 weeks. Real relationships don't work like this. Blah blah blah. And it wasn't her fault. She told you quite clearly from the beginning that she was up for every 2 weeks, but you wanted more. And what you had in your head was different to what she had in her head. So that's where, the beginning of your relationship, you need to establish, are you the kind of person who will come every week? Are you the kind of person who will practice every day? Because that's the kind of person I want to have a relationship with as a teacher. If you're not that kind of person, let's not even go there. Let's just end it now. And then there'll be no tears. Does that make sense? Is that, yeah?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like kind of in a way I'm sort of having the opposite problem, because I was or maybe not. I guess like in the past I've been a little bit more flexible than I should have been, and that's created a lot of problems for me down the line. And I've found that as time's gone on, I've become sort of more and more thorough, I guess, about implementing my policies, and more kind of uniform about implementing them. So that's sort of created problems down the line, and people who weren't willing to toe the line on all of the policies I've let go. And it's just as much my fault as theirs, because I didn't crack down on them from day one and say this is how things are going to be. I said this is how things should be. Oh, okay, you're not playing by the rules. Well, that's okay. Please do it. Like, do what you're supposed to do next time.
Yeah.
But I've kind of gotten to the point where I just can't. I've got too many other things to deal with. I don't have the mental space to deal with those kinds of students anymore.
Yeah. In a sense, look, there's two things here. One is that if you've had a business, and a lot of people fall into this, you've had a business that's been running, and I know this because I've been there, that's got inherent problems. That you've got students who came in under your old flexible rules, and now you've upped your game. You've got a clear plan of what you want, and now those students are still fighting and resisting and want the old way of doing things, because that's what they bought into. I understand that's you may have to let those students go. You may have to cull, as you said, those particular students, because they just bought into the old Daniel. They're not with the new Daniel, and that's okay, because actually the sooner you move them on, probably the better, because that energy is going to drain you, whereas new students come in fresh. And that's where, when Ruby's talking, Ruby's really sort of gone right from the start and put everything in place. So maybe that's why he's not having any problems, because he's just sticking to the policies right from the word go. And his students know this is how Ruby runs his business. There's no room for negotiation or compromise here. This is how it is. So that's probably so I do understand that. I do want to kind of go over how to sort of switch students around, because that's the topic here, is how to get those worst students into being good students. So maybe if we can sort of start with that and drill down on that. Before I do that, though, I'll just bring Stu into the conversation. Stu, have you had any problems in this regard?
Yep. Quite a number. That's why my conversion rate from inquiries was so low, because I would say I've had like at least 30 people in that exact same situation that have inquired about lessons. Originally I was taking them on, and now I just tend to not even get past the phone call and just turn them away.
Okay. All right.
So
you understand it, which is great. So, and what we want to do, obviously, is we want the best of both worlds. That's what we're trying to achieve here. We don't want to be turning them away, but we don't want to be compromising. So we want the beautiful girl, but we want to see her every day. All right? We don't want the 2-week beautiful girl. So this is what we're trying to achieve here: is have these students who are going to come every week and who are going to who are going to practice every day, and who are going to really fit the model that we're talking about here. So let me throw this out. I'll just go back to Daniel. Do you have a student that fits that?
Sorry, I just got distracted by a comment. Right.
Well, let me ask the question again. Do you have a student who is what you would call almost perfect? They practice every day, they turn up to every lesson, they follow all your policies.
Yeah.
Do you have such a student?
Yep. They're called a child.
A child with a good parent.
The child with a good parent. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay. So what we want to do here is we want to look at what it is, what are the qualities of that particular student, and how we can bring the other students across to that same kind of thinking, same kind of ideal, if you like. So when we have a student who is already a problem, let's just go through some of the policies. I'll go back to Daniel. Daniel, what's one of the policies here that a student won't follow, that you've had a problem with? One of the students you had to let go. What was one of the policies that they weren't adhering to?
I guess one of the bigger ones is just adhering to the practice every day policy. Usually what I'll say to them, because I guess I understand myself what it's like to be extremely busy. So usually I'll say, in a perfect world, you practice X amount every day, depending on what level and what age they're at. But I understand that maybe you can't do that because maybe you're doing this or maybe you're doing this. So if you can do, make sure you do at least 5 days a week. And if you don't do that, then I will have words about it, because I can't. Your lessons are not going to be sustainable otherwise. You're not going to be able to keep up with the group otherwise.
Okay, cool. All right. So the main issue here, or one of the main issues I think for everyone, is getting students to practice, is having them, being consistent with their practice. So let's play it out. Let's take that student who's come in, 3 weeks in a row and they haven't practiced. Where do you think the problem started? Go back to the first time.
Well, I guess it depends on the student, because there's students that I would have had for like a couple of years or something like that. I'm certainly willing to say that in those cases it's almost definitely my fault, because I didn't make it as clear as I should have up front that was absolutely necessary and that I wouldn't teach them otherwise, which I do now. I make it really clear from day one. If you're not doing this, then I can't teach you. There's nothing it's just going to be a waste of both of our time and a waste of your parents' money. But now the first thing I'd go to, if someone hadn't practiced for three weeks in a row, I would jump straight on their parents and say, what's going on at home? You're sitting with them when they practice. Why aren't you sitting with them when they practice? And usually that solves the problem, in my experience.
Okay, brilliant. So, what do you say then to the parent? Let's say I'm the parent. I've been bringing my daughter to you for lessons. You can see the practice is not happening. This is the first week, let's say, of the intro. It's now second week. I've turned up and I've said, oh, look, sorry Daniel, really sorry, mate, we didn't get a chance to practice this week. You know, we had the grandparents here from Japan, and you know, it was a very special week for my daughter. So really sorry, but we'll get onto it next week. What are you going to say to me?
Well, it's actually really important that you practice every week. You can't pick and choose which weeks you practice. Otherwise, you're just going to stagnate as a student. You're going to get bored of the material that you're practicing over and over again. And if you don't practice your stuff week to week, then we're going to be caught in this loop where I'm just conducting the same lesson over and over and over again. And you don't want that, and I don't want that. So make sure you practice your material every week.
Okay, cool, good. So let me go to Ruby. Ruby, with the case of this particular scenario, I'm here with my daughter. It's the second week. She hasn't practiced, and what would, not what you'd say, because we just sort of covered that with Daniel, but what would you conclude from that? Where's the problem?
If she hasn't practiced, I'd probably be thinking that that's the parents haven't really done their job in this situation. Yeah. To help encourage the student to do the practice. I'll probably be directing my comments at the parents more than the student.
Okay.
And I think probably a 3 strikes and you're out rule is good. I did have a student who wasn't practicing and didn't practice for 2 weeks.
Yep. And
I spoke to his mum, and the next week he had practiced and was really keen.
Okay, good.
Maybe to after 2 weeks, it's probably a bit early because things do happen for people, but maybe 3 strikes for sure.
Yeah, good. Because I mean, the thing is that practice itself builds confidence, because once they start practicing, they're able to do it, and they can turn up to their lesson and they go, look, I can do this, and then they feel good. Kids, especially kids, respond really well, and I'm looking for another answer here, though. I'll go to Stu. Stu, the second week, same scenario. What's your conclusion out of this?
I kind of think they're testing. I think they're testing you. I just think the parents aren't exactly sure you're serious about your policies yet. And particularly if you've had if say like prior to them signing up, they've spoken to you on the phone and said, oh, well, I don't have PayPal, but I'll pay with cash, is that okay? And you've gone, yeah, that's fine. Well, by the time they come into the lesson, there's no way that they're going to actually listen to what you're saying about practice. You've sent them words, and they're just words. They don't believe that you believe your policies.
Fantastic. That's a real insight, because if one of your policies is easy to push, then they'll push your other policies, and they won't be taking you as seriously. And I think that, and you're really close to what I'm going to say in a second. But Jeff, have you got anything you want to add? And I only do this this is not a right or wrong answer. This is to get more answers out of this, so you guys can add more to the conversation. Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, I think sticking to your policies. I mean, it's something I've got to do, because I've been really kind of lazy about any kind of policies in the past, which has worked okay for the way I was running it. As a kind of almost casual business, it was fine. But now I'm actually seeing that. I actually had a comment from one student, a mother actually. It was something about, okay, she's really loving doing this song that she likes doing, but the one in the book, she's bored with being on this one because she's been on it for a while. And I really want to have a conversation with about that, because I think they've got the wrong attitude to it. The thing is, if they've been on it for a while, that means they're not practicing it. So, right. I'm really starting to see this kind of attitude. Well, I'll practice what I feel like practicing, but I'm not going to practice the rest of the stuff. And that's kind of all related to that, isn't it? You've got to get that policy idea of like everything has got to be adhered to, and you've got to do every little bit of these things, and not just pick and choose what you feel like doing. And the same thing with me. I've got to stick to all the policies to get through that.
Exactly. See, what we're trying to do, and that's great. That's a really good example, and we should sort of talk about that a little bit more in a sec. But the thing is that it's all about getting them to practice. that's what we really do. That's 90% of our job, is getting students to practice, because as Daniel has nicely put up here, practice equals enthusiasm, which equals more practice, which equals more enthusiasm, and it becomes a virtuous cycle. So if we can get that started right from the beginning, really ignite that, then you have very few problems. And this is some of the time when I talk and I sort of try and give you this image of how I ran my lessons. It's almost like, oh yeah, Dave, that's kind of an ideal. That doesn't really happen in the real world. Well, it does. You create this momentum. It's the excitement of the students who are practicing, getting better, learning, they're competing, wanting to practice more than the other one, and on it goes and on it goes. And so that's what we're trying to get started here. But if you do the opposite, where you relaxed on the practice, you let them not practice the first week, the second week, or do half the amount of practice that they really should, and there's no momentum, that's when you start to get the opposite happening, where they're all sort of not really into it. They're constantly making excuses, and you're constantly frustrated and tired, and like, this is going nowhere. So what we want to do is really know that every student has the potential of coming in, doing that initial practice, getting the enthusiasm, which then causes more practices. Daniel's put up there really nicely. So the thing that I'm looking at here is that when they come in the second week and haven't practiced, guess what? That's you. You haven't done the job the first week. You haven't made it clear enough what you expected and how important the practice is. And this is where what we tend to do, our natural thing to do, is dismiss responsibility. We want to pass the buck. We want to say, it's not me, it's them. It's the students, the parents. It's nothing to do with me. I can only do so much. And teachers love to hear this. That when I say this, and I've done this, I do it as a bit of a kind of experiment. I'd say, well, it's not you. You can't do much. You're just a teacher. Half an hour a week. What can you do? And teachers love that. Yes, I'm not guilty. Thank you. It's them. It's them. We love to blame the other. And once we stop doing that in every part of our life, and this is why teaching is such a great kind of analogy for everything. Once you start taking responsibility for your student not practicing, go, okay, well, they didn't practice. Why? What did I do or not do that caused them to come in week 2 without any practice in their log? Were they not listening to me? Did they not take me seriously? Am I just a joke? What's going on? This should be almost insulting to you. You should be so sort of shocked that, my God, you've turned up week 2 without filling in your log? Are you serious? What are we doing here? Tell me, help me, and what do I need to do to get you to practice? Because I thought I made that clear last week. Now, I'm not saying that you say it in these terms, by the way. We're not here to what you're really doing is talking to yourself. You're saying to yourself, what did I do or not do last week in week 1 that caused this to happen in week 2? Now, if it happens once in a blue moon, the 3%, you can let yourself off. It's not you. You've done your best. And you've done probably everything that's possible. There's going to be that small percentage you just aren't going to buy into what you're doing, and that's okay. But if it's recurring, if you're seeing it happen often, then it's you. It's something that you're not doing in either the inquiry phone call or the first lesson to make it very clear that you must fill in this practice log. It's part of the game. Now, here's the kind of things that you can do just to sort of, I'm going to go right outside of the kind of the realm of what's normal here and show you how extreme you can go. If you're having this problem, ring the student on the phone after the first lesson the next day. Did you practice yesterday? Yes? No? You didn't practice yesterday. What happened? Talk to me. Because you know that I need you practicing, don't you? You understand that. And then they go, oh, I'm really sorry. Well, go and practice now. You understand, Johnny? You go and practice now. Off you go. All right? Bang, hang up the phone. Next day, did you practice yesterday? No, I didn't. What? What do you mean? I'm coming around now. I'm getting in my car, I'm coming around, and we're going to sit down together and we're going to do the practice. Okay? You understand? I need you to do this practice. This is how committed I am to you doing this practice. You do understand that. Now, they're either going to call the police and tell you to go away, and they never want to see you again, and that's okay, or they're going to start practicing. Okay. Now, I knew a teacher who was like this. He was a drum teacher, fantastic guy, and he would actually go to the students' homes, and he would get them started on practice in their home. He was so committed to their success, and he was one of the inspirations for me early on as a teacher. He was younger than me. I was about 30, and he was only 19. But he was so inspired, such a great teacher. And he would literally go. He would set up their drums in their house, and he would go there, and he'd get them into the routine of practicing at home. He'd say, "Is this your practice room? Great. Okay, where's your music stand? Okay, that's good. This is where you're going to put your books. You understand? Okay, I want you to sit there. I want you to start practicing. I'm going to watch you today. All right, you good with that? Yep. And then tomorrow do the same thing. You understand? Bang, bang, bang." And his students were all stars. They were just like brilliant. So you've got to be so committed that you will do whatever it takes to get your students to practice. Now you might think, yeah, but I don't have that much time. I don't have time to. I've got 50 students. I can't be going to their homes and ringing them every day and blah blah blah. But if you do this early, you don't have to keep doing it. It's that early investment into each person. Now. This is what you guys are getting with me, and Jeff, you've just come on board, so you're going through this early experience. As I say, Joachim is on the other end of the scale, and Daniel, where they know that I'm here anytime for them. I'm prepared to put in as much time as it takes for these guys to succeed, and you can talk to them. You can, right across the board. Any of you guys, if you email me, you want to talk to me anytime, I'll do whatever it takes to ensure you succeed. Your success or failure will come about through your communication. It's not through a lack of me trying. It's through a lack of whether or not you're willing to participate. I don't let people fail willingly. What I do is I will do everything I can to help you succeed. If that doesn't work, then that's I've done everything I can. But when you are not doing everything that you can, then you know it. You know you haven't done. You know that you're kind of holding back on your students. You're not giving them 100%. So does that make sense? Yeah. I know it's kind of funny and amusing to imagine the kind of things that people do, but this is really what success is about. Success is about, as Emma put a great post up today, it's about being committed to each of your students. When every new student comes to you, it's not about whether they're good enough for you. And that's what that some teachers have this kind of attitude that, well, if you're not good enough for me, then you can go. I'm only going to take students who come fully motivated, fully willing to learn. And that's the sign, believe it or not, of a poor teacher. That's the sign of a teacher who, the students are already motivated. The students are already going to be good. You're not going to make them good. It's not about you. They already have what it takes. It's probably their parents or something else that's going on in their life that's inspiring them to be a great musician. It's not you. But a real teacher can take students who have no motivation, almost zero motivation, and turn them into inspired, motivated, committed students. That's what a good coach and a good teacher is. And I can give you lots of examples of where this happens, where you'll see coaches, and I often refer, as some of you probably know, I refer to people like John Wooden, who's a fairly good example, Tony Robbins, who's an excellent example, who will actually take people who have zero motivation and turn them into stars. Someone like Tony Robbins took Andre Agassi, who was ranked 100 and something tennis player in the world, and he lost all enthusiasm for the game. He just was ready to retire and give up. He took him to #1, and it was all to do with mental. It was all to do with being absolutely committed to getting him there. So I'm not going to quit on you, dude. I'm going to get you to #1. And that's what you want to have, that attitude with your students, each and every one of them. Even if you have 3 students, it's better to have 3 students that you're fully committed to than having hundreds of students that you're not committed to. What you want to do is have a school that starts from committed students. The reason my numbers grew so quickly was because the students I started with, I gave them everything. I was absolutely committed to them, to being successful. And then they became excited. And they were practicing every day. And then that's infectious. They then went to their schools and told their friends and said, this is great, we're learning guitar, blah, blah, blah. We're having fun, it's getting better and better. Their confidence, enthusiasm then brought in more students, and it grows and grows and grows. And when they come into your rooms, it's not about, oh, g'day, how are you? Yeah, good to see you, John. Yeah, just sit down, mate. Yeah, yeah. All right, let's just have a look at that chord that you're doing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, just practice a bit more. What else were we looking at? Scale or something? Okay, yeah. So when you have this kind of energy, low energy, this attitude, then what happens is that the students are not motivated. They're not interested. If you're too casual, you're too laid back, you're too kind of unmotivated yourself about your teaching, your students will reflect you. They will reflect the way that you project. If you project a huge commitment, a huge excitement, huge motivation about them learning and about teaching, then your students will become the same. Make sense? Yep?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Right. So what I want to do is now go through a couple of other examples and just see if we can really break this down, really turn around some of the potential problems that you're having early on with students. So let's go back to that week one. What should be done in that week one? So let me go to you, Stu. In first lesson, we're talking about practice here. What do you say to me? I'm there with my daughter. It's first lesson. How do you present?
I normally show them the folder, show them the practice log, talk about
when you do it?
Say that it's a requirement. Talk about how, depending on their age, or either talk to the parent or talk to them about just how that's a good way to sort of keep motivated, and that's how it's fun, by continuing to learn and just about putting in their effort and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I'd kind of have to role play it to do it, to do exactly what I say, but just general things like that.
Let's role play it. Let's go through it. I'm there with my daughter. It's the very first lesson. I come in. I say, "Oh, hi. My name's David, and this is my daughter Mia. She's 5 years old, and we've been tinkering with guitar a little bit at home, and we saw your lessons and looked good. So yeah, we're here. What do we do?"
I don't think I could actually do a role play at the moment. I'm just not really feeling very well, so I'm sorry. Is that okay? Am I allowed to back out of this one?
Well, you can, yeah. But it's one of those things where this is really what it's about. So yeah, that's cool. You don't have to do it, but just
got a really sore throat.
Okay, that's cool. Let me move to Ruby then. See what Ruby does. Let's get the Ruby magic happening.
I find that in the first lesson, it makes a huge difference to be enthusiastic, because at that point they don't know what to expect at all, and so kind of the first response they get from me is going to be the one that sets the tone for the whole week and thereafter. So I find with the first ones, I like to just express a bit about what I like about guitar and kind of what it does for me too, and then they see that I really like it.
Beautiful.
But other than that, I find I kind of present the folder and the book and explain it to them as though this is a thing. This is the course. We're going to do it. And in a way, I just kind of say to them, look, this is what we're doing, and my job is to help you work through this. And usually, in the week ones, I've been drilling them quite a lot about practice, and I find it's quite full on week one. By the time I get through all this and just explaining what it is, how we do it, and what's going to happen, then the second half of the lesson I'm just getting into introducing some basics for them to do, like the exercises, the picking, and the 3-note chords. And which is good, because by the time they listen to me talk about the folder and everything, they're kind of happy just to get playing something, and yeah, mostly it's just about presenting the package.
Excellent, excellent. So it's good because really that you what I liked there was that you said that you kind of share your enthusiasm for guitar, why you do guitar, why what it is for you. This is something that if we can sort of show that we're go back to your own childhood, go back to when you started learning, whenever that was, and why you learned, and put yourself in that position with every new student, so you understand the excitement that they have, the potential of being able to play this instrument and to be able to play whatever songs they want to play or be whoever their musical heroes are, whatever it is for them. And so you can really relate to that. The thing in the first lesson, especially with kids, is you've really got to connect with them. So there's got to be this enthusiasm, excitement, and if you came in and let's say the little kid's named Johnny, we always like to use Johnny, and I just go, "G'day, Johnny, how are you? How are you, mate? Good, good, excellent. Right, take a seat for me, dude. We're gonna jump into this guitar, and I'm gonna show you how to play it. Okay? Today's the day that your guitar starts. All right. So first of all, what I want to talk about is something very important before we do anything else here. And I might explain a few of the basics of guitar first, by the way. But what I do is I jump in and then I'll say, all right, I want to talk about practice, because practice is the thing that's going to make you a rock star. Right? That's the thing that's going to make you good. You understand, Johnny? Yep, cool. Practice is what we need to do. So, but practice is good. Practice is fun. If you know what you're doing, it'll be fun. So here's what we're going to do. Each day we're going to pick some time. We're going to work out a time that you can sit down with mum or dad, and whoever's there at the lesson, I'll just say, Mum, are you going to be the one working with Johnny at home with his practice? Yeah, that'll be me, or no, that'll be my husband, whatever. Okay, all right, Mum's going to do it. Fantastic. So what time of day on a Monday can you practice? Because we need to practice every day. So what time on a Monday can you practice? Oh, we've got this and that now. Okay, 4:30, good. Let's write that in. 4:30, we'll lock that in. We good with that, Johnny? Yep, good. Give me a high five. Mondays, 4:30. What about Tuesdays? Can we do the same time on a Tuesday? Well, no, we've got basketball on that day, blah, blah, blah. So I go right through the week and I really map out. And each time I really get Johnny involved and excited. I'm talking to the mum. I've got the mum responsible, but I'm talking to Johnny and I'm making Johnny understand that this is what we're going to be doing. This is what's happening to practice. Now, through that first lesson, as I explain things, I will keep referring back to the practice, and making that exciting. And I said, if you do this practice for me, next week I'm going to be so excited when I see, this is what I want to see. You understand, Johnny? I want to see this log filled in. I want to see you fill these numbers in, all right? Here's a pencil. Here you have a practice now. Pretend that you're doing the practice. Write it in now. Good. So that's how you do it. Fantastic. All right. So even show them, like Daniel had a great example of sticking his practice log up on the wall, turning around and go, that's my practice log. You see, that's me practicing every day. So can you do that for me, Johnny? Because that's what needs to happen. Every good guitar player practices every day. So by getting that kind of exciting and making the fun, and then constantly connecting with the student, in this case the kid, constantly making Johnny feel good about his lesson and good about wanting to practice, and then at the end getting him to say, and so what are you going to do for me, Johnny? Practice. Making sure that he says that answer to you. So when you turn to him and say, what are you going to do? He knows, practice every day. So what are you going to do? Practice every day. Excellent. So you get him to say that. Get him to be his, the thing that he says at the, teach him in the lesson, in the middle of the lesson, at the end of the lesson, and so he walks away. So the last thing you say to him, Johnny, one more thing. What are you going to do? Practice every day. Good on you. Give me 5. Bang. All right. See you next week, buddy. Keep that enthusiasm. Keep him on track. Keep him focused on what's going to happen. Now, if that doesn't work, then that's when you need to do the phone call, because you're still missing something. You need to be following up. You need to say, okay, I'm getting these students coming through who, despite all my enthusiasm and excitement and following Dave's advice, and it's just still not working. Let me go to the next level. I'm going to ring them the second day. So what you do is you actually say, you say to the parent, you say, look, I'm going to ring tomorrow after his first practice, or even in a couple of days, just to see how you're going, because I know that getting him into the routine the first week is hard. And say that to parents, be very sort of say, look, there are going to be times, and you don't have to say it in front of the child openly, say it quietly to the parent, look, there are going to be times when he probably won't want to practice. That's normal. It's par for the course. So what I'm here to do is I'm going to help you in how to get him to practice. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ring you in a couple of days to see how you've gone for these first couple of days. And then if you're having any trouble getting into practice, then we can have a chat about it. Oh, okay, good. That's great service. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And off they go. So you have to be so committed, and that's what I keep coming back to. You have to be so committed to them practicing that you're not going to let it slide. And if in that first week they miss practice, guess what? You're already way behind. You're going to find it very difficult because they've already got away with 1 week of not practicing. They're already not taking it that seriously. And you can have a 3 strikes out policy, but it still doesn't help you because they just go the 3 strikes and walk away. What you want is to have no strikes. You want to make sure that in that very first lesson that you're very clear about what it is. So connecting is the most important thing. Connecting with the student, connecting with the parent. Building that connection. I talk about getting into the family circle, ask them a little bit about their family and their life and what's going on. Get to know who they are. This is why I do the 5-week private intro, because I want to know who they are. I don't want to just throw them into a group as a kind of an anonymous person. I don't know if any of you guys have done it, but I've joined gyms where you just sign up a membership. Nobody knows you. There's no kind of rapport with the people there. So you base it purely on the facilities. Facilities are good, great. They're not, then you'd sign off and go somewhere else. Someone comes up with a better deal. But if you've got a connection there with those people, it's a family business, you know the owners, you say hi to grandma when you walk in, whatever, then you get this different feeling about the place and you're less likely to go looking for competition, even if it's cheaper. So when you are in that family circle and you have that connection, and you have the connection with the parent, where the parent really trusts you and knows that you're fully committed to their child learning. I'll give you another example. I had funnily enough, a girl who went to school with me. And I hadn't heard from her for years. Anyway, she found me through Facebook. She knew I was teaching guitar and whatever, but she tracked me down 20 years later on Facebook and said, are you still in the area? Because my daughter wants to learn guitar. And I said, no, but I know a teacher in the area. And he's a G4 teacher, blah, blah, blah. And she said, okay, well, that's good. And then she told me about how she'd been going to another teacher. And she said that we tried, she tried learning with the other teacher for 6 months. She was never practicing, and we just want to give it another go because we would really like her to learn to play guitar, but just didn't seem. So I started saying to her, "Were you helping her with the practice?" She said, "No." I said, "Did the teacher ask you to do the practice?" "No." "Did the teacher help you at all in how to work with your daughter?" "No, nothing." And I said, "Well, let me tell you, we operate very differently." And she was like, "Wow, this is fantastic." And now her daughter's doing really well. Okay, daughter's been learning for about a year and a half now. And the teacher, I can tell you now, would have just blamed the student. Said, she doesn't practice. She's not enthusiastic. She's not motivated. I'm not going to push it. So they pulled out after 6 months, spending money, daughter not practicing, they pulled out. But now she's under a good teacher and she's getting results. She's getting very good results. So this is the amount of power you have as a teacher is a lot more than you probably give yourself or you give credit for. There's your ability to transform a student into a great student, into one of your best students, it's all there, and you can do it with nearly every single one of your students. You've just got to be prepared to do it. You've got to be prepared to do whatever it takes. You've got to keep looking at yourself. You've got to keep asking yourself, have I done everything there is to do? And the point I was making in the conversation on Facebook the other day with the thread that Daniel put up there was that you haven't done everything that there is to be done until you've come to me and asked me, is there anything else I can do? That's when I will say, well, yeah, you've done everything that I can feasibly think of that you can do. If you haven't come to me, then you still haven't done everything. So if you're doing this and you do it with every single student, that you say, I just lost a student, or the student turned up second week, didn't practice. Damn it, Dave, what do I do? What did I do wrong? Let's talk about it. Let's get on Skype or let's email, let's do whatever, let's work this out. What else to do? And I would say to you, okay, well, let's break it down. Let's look at what happened in that first lesson, etc. And eventually you'll get to a point where you will lose very few students. Very few, okay? That's just the way of it. It's the same with this network. Very few of the teachers who join the network leave. It's because I'm totally committed to you guys succeeding and becoming the best you can and earning over 100 grand a year or whatever, taking it beyond that. I'm totally committed to you. I'm not saying, oh, dudes, I'm really busy this week, you know, I'm not in the mood this week, you know, just sort yourselves out, you know, I'm off doing my own thing. I'm not. I'm here and I'm going to make sure it happens. But here's the thing, which is really important, is that if it's just about me, in other words, that I'm just here for you guys, imagine when we get to 1,000 members, the question that comes up, and let me throw this back at any of you, just put your hand up if you think you can answer this question. How am I going to help 1,000 teachers who are all coming to me with problems every day? Does anyone have an answer here, Jeff?
Yeah, I was just thinking that you basically going to use the teachers that you've taught already to help the other teachers, I would have thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm going to pick the stars amongst you, and I'm going to pay you to do it. Okay? I'm going to, and that's the same as what you do. If you're a really good teacher, then you'll be training up your students to be teachers, and they will then step into your shoes. That's what just about every martial arts school does. Just about every person that will teach you, if you go and join any martial arts school, the person who's teaching you is a former student of the sensei. They're not someone that just came in off the street. They didn't put an ad in the paper, wanted karate expert to coach my students. They get their own students to do it, and then they build their schools and their networks from there. So that's one way, but there's also another way. What's the other way that I'm going to help? How am I going to be able to? Yes, Joachim?
I'm sorry, no, I was someone outside.
Oh, okay, you're waving to your friend. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Okay. The other way is to systemize things, right? Doing what I'm doing here, I'm recording this video. I've recorded, almost over 100 hours now of audio. And Emma's doing it as well. So I can, when someone's got this issue, go back and watch this video. I'm systemizing everything. I'm collating everything that I do. How many of you record your guitar lessons? Video your guitar lessons? Anybody here? Video your lessons? Yep. Great. Okay. Do you upload them to YouTube? Yep. I know. I've seen some of your videos, Jeff, where they're great. Jeff's got a couple of really good videos, by the way, where he's teaching online, which is fantastic. It's not him teaching students, but he's giving an actual video lesson, and the video quality is great, and the audio is great. And Daniel, you're actually recording your lessons while you're teaching, is that right?
Yeah, I do, especially for the first 5 weeks, I do audio recordings of all of the lessons so that the students can take them home with them. Because I find that, like, more than at any other point in the process, I get a lot of questions during the first 5 lessons about, like, I couldn't really remember what you said about this, or I didn't really understand this properly. So I just make a point of recording all of their first 5 lessons, just so they've got the material with them.
Okay, great. So think about this. And this is why I record these. This is why I do these. Is because I'm leveraging my time. What's going to take me, an hour and a half of doing this, is now going to go out to hundreds or thousands of people over the next however many years, and help them to get the same information and the same value without me having to do it again and again and again and again. Okay, so there will come a point where you guys will be the rock stars because you'll be on these early videos, and people will go, these are the guys. This is back when Daniel was, in his early years, and now he, tours the world doing lectures to 10,000 people at a time on how to run a business or teach guitar or whatever. This is the kind of leverage that happens and will be happening as we grow and grow and grow. And with your lessons, with what you're doing, the way to do it is you take the questions that keep reoccurring. This is how you build a system. And when we look at any business, any good business, especially like a franchise business, they look at the problem that keeps reoccurring, and then they solve that problem through a system. So if a student keeps coming in and asking you about, how do I do this or how do I do that, do a video for it, and then send them the link to the video. Say, check out this video. Well, if you know it's a very common problem, like, for instance, parents not knowing how, and that's what I'm looking at the moment, is doing this together, and this is part of the leveraging of G4, is making a series of videos on strategies for helping your kids learn guitar, and how to have them motivated and learn guitar. Now, I'm just going to touch on this because I think this is something that is worth mentioning, and that is that if you take a child and you say, all right, we have to do guitar practice, and I know this because I've got Mia as my guinea pig that I experiment with every day, and I say to her something like, it's guitar time to practice guitar. She'll go, kind of moan and groan, and she'll want to, oh, but I don't want to do, I want to read a story, I want to draw, I want to do this or that, the other. So I realized, okay, that's not going to work. If I keep doing that, it's just going to become this routine nightmare of forcing her to practice every day. So I've now started developing a series of games to play. So one game that I have is that I start off with the game of hide the guitar. So first thing we do is I hide the guitar somewhere in the house, and she's got to find the guitar. So that starts it off as a game. Straight away she wants to play. She's all up for the game of hide the guitar. Then what I do is I do what's called the 10-point game. And that's where we're going to get 10 points. We're going to practice, and when we get 10 points, she gets to choose something that she wants, whether it's have a book read or watch a video, etc. Whatever it is she wants out of the choices, she gets. So we go for the 10 points. She loves earning the points. She gets the points. Then I do things like play games where I say to her, okay, I'm going to hide my eyes, and you've got to start picking a string. Now, if I say to her, I want you to practice picking, she's like, it's boring, it's boring. But if I say to her, okay, I want you to pick a string, I'm not going to look, and I have to guess which string it is. And so she thinks that's fun. So she starts picking one of the strings, and let's say she's picking the E string, I go, G. And she laughs and goes, no, wrong. It must be D. No, wrong. It must be A. No. And eventually, it's the E string. And so then, okay, let's do another one. So that's a way of turning the picking, which she thinks is boring, into a fun game, which she wants to play. Doing things like, everything that you can turn into a game. And this is what we need to teach parents. Is we need to teach parents how to turn the practice into a game, turn it into fun. And I even do this with my wife. When she tries to get my daughter to go and brush her teeth, she goes, we've got to go and brush your teeth. And it's the same, when she does it. I have to keep reminding my wife, because she sort of goes to the automatic thing of let's go and clean her teeth, and Mia straight away resists and doesn't want to do it and complains and whatever. And I say to her, you've got to turn it into a game. And that's what she's been doing. It's been working really well. And so, I just say to Mia, okay, let's see who can get to the bathroom the quickest. Let's go. Bang. And she's off like a rocket into the bathroom. All right, let's see who can get the toothpaste on the toothbrush the quickest. And bang and bang. So by turning anything into a game, kids are up for it. And this is where parents don't get this. They don't understand this a lot of the time. So by you guys understanding this, you're going to be very... you're going to empower the parent, and you're going to become known as an excellent teacher, because you know the strategies that work. Parents want something that works. They don't want just telling them to go home and make sure their child practices. That's not enough. It's like, well, how do I get them to practice? How do I motivate them to practice? That's what they want. That's the information they're looking for. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. I run into objections, I guess not so much anymore, but I used to run into objections quite a lot, and still occasionally, where I'll explain something to a parent and they'll just say, oh, it's just not possible. I can't do that. And if you were a parent, you'd understand why that was impossible.
Yeah. Okay. So, can you give me an example of something that's impossible that they might say to you?
Can you sit with your child and practice with them every day is the main one.
Okay. Yep. So they don't have 10 minutes to sit with their child?
Apparently not.
Okay. I would be sending them to a counsellor for help. If you don't have 10 minutes for your child a day, something's seriously wrong. My daughter, if I didn't have 10 minutes for my daughter each day, I know that I'm a workaholic or there's something wrong. She's going to hate me. She's going to grow up hating me if I don't spend 10 minutes a day with her. Doing something with her, you know what I mean? Like, it's just an excuse, Dan. You know, it's just an excuse.
I do. But is there a way that you can address it without it looking like you're trying to tell them how to raise their children?
Yeah. The way to do it is to present it as if it's not a choice. And this might seem a bit harsh, but you've got to do it is almost if you're saying, you know, we need to work out the time to spend 10 minutes a day. If someone says to me, I don't have 10 minutes a day, it's like, hang on, you don't have 10 minutes a day. That it shouldn't be something that the parent should say to me, because it's just an unreasonable thing to say that you don't have 10 minutes a day to spend with your child. Maybe they don't have an hour to sit down and do guitar with their child. I understand that. That's you know, fair enough. But look, there's never been a point, no matter how busy I've been with everything that I do, that I haven't been able to sit down with Mia every night for, you know, the only time that we don't get it done is if we go out, if something's on, you know, and I'll try and do it before we go out if I can, but there are some days when it doesn't happen, and that's okay because she does it pretty well every other day, so it's not a big deal. So the thing is that maybe they're sort of, what you can sort of do is kind of rephrase it and say, oh, actually, I understand you're very busy, but I only need 10 minutes a day. That's really all I need to get started. I mean, we'll need to increase it later, but just 10 minutes a day is all I need. In other words, no, you're misunderstanding me. I'm not asking you for 3 hours a day. I'm just asking you for 10 minutes a day. You know, it's like someone saying, I can't afford to do something. And say, well, no, it's not $50. It's only $1. You understand? You only have to pay $1. It's very cheap. I'm not asking you to give up. So, yeah, if you can, that's how I would probably approach it. If a parent said to me, look, I don't have time, I say, oh, sorry, I understand you must be extremely busy, but let me just say, all I need is 10 minutes a day. I don't need an hour a day. I just need you to start off with 10 minutes a day. Just sit down with your child and go through these exercises. That's all. Oh, okay, 10 minutes. All right. Okay, yeah, I should be able to manage that. Seriously, if a parent says to me that, you know, after all that they can't do, and I establish just on the phone, like they don't even get to the lesson before this. I always say, you know, I always say, even if it was at the end of the phone call, just before we go ahead, I just want to make sure that you'll be able to sit with your child and practice each day, because someone has to sit, either you or you know, your husband or an older sibling or something. Is someone going to be able to sit with your child? First I'll say, are you able to? And if they say they're not able to, then I'll go, is someone else able to sit with your child? If they say, oh, not really, we're going to leave it up to him or her to do it themselves, that's when I say, look, it really won't work. I understand that you're really busy and blah, 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 but it just doesn't work. You know, there's the odd case where the child's really self-motivated and can do it, and maybe your child's the exception, but in, you know, nearly every case, if there's not a parent there, because it's hard, and there'll be times when they won't want to practice or they won't understand it or they'll feel overwhelmed or whatever. So I really need a parent there to do this with. So if that's not possible right now for you, let's perhaps leave it and come back to me when you can find the time. And I do it in a nice way. I'm not condescending or making them feel bad or whatever, because if they've got other things on, maybe they already spend time with their child doing other things. It's not a child neglect thing. It's just that they already have 12 different activities that they do through the week, and the guitar is just one more. But I've just established through talking to them that they're too busy. They've got too much going on in their lives. You don't need to add another thing to it. If guitar's a higher priority than the other things on the list, great, drop something else on your list. But guitar has to get this is what guitar needs for it to work. Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. All right. So, does anyone else have any questions? Looking like we're doing pretty well on this topic. So, really, what I'm looking for here is for you guys to take responsibility, to be able to say, okay, if a student doesn't practice in that first week, then it's something that I'm not doing. You don't have to feel guilty or bad. It's not about a guilt trip. It's just about acknowledging that there's something else that you could be doing in that intro. So let's just throw it back here to you guys. I want to go through each one of you and just give me one thing that you could do in the intro and that first lesson that could increase the odds of the student practicing. And I'll go from, Stu, I'll start with you, Stu. So what's one thing you could do in the intro that would increase the odds of the student practicing?
Making sure when on the first phone call the parent is aware that they do need to be there for the lesson.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah. All right. So making sure the parent is aware of their role. Fantastic. All right, Ruby.
Just like letting them know, like see your own practice log, or just setting that example that you do this practice too.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Showing them that you walk the talk. All right. Okay, Jeff.
Yeah, I just think getting in really early with that whole idea of practice is absolutely essential, and getting the parents on board with that, not just the kids.
Okay. Pushing the practice message hard and early. Go really hard on it. Drive them crazy to the point where they go, yes, I get it. Shut up. I know. I hear you.
Yeah. I don't think I do it enough yet, but I'm getting motivated to do more. So.
Excellent. So a lot of teachers are kind of fearful of pushing it too hard because they think they'll lose the student. Better to lose the student early on than drag it on. Let's work this out now.
I'm just at that tipping point between all these other students that have kind of been taught in a different way, and then just getting them to go into that method now. So it's a big turnaround for me at the moment. Yeah,
yeah, and look, that's part of what I'm here to do, is to sort of keep pushing you to sort of step it up and stay up there, because when you're on your own, this is the problem with teaching solo, is that when you face a lot of these problems, you're on your own, and it's hard to sort of come back and talk to other guys who are going through a similar thing, and to understand that it does work, to believe in it, to have enough sort of courage to believe in it will work. When you first do things, sometimes your delivery won't work. Sometimes you will scare off students. They'll go, oh, he's really serious. He's really pushing hard on the practice. I don't know that I like him. And they'll leave. So it's about you delivering it in such a way that it's not you come across as a kind of a nasty, strict, hard-ass guy, that you're actually somebody who cares. That it's like, I really want you to do this. I know, I believe in you, and that's really what was important. There was some comment I saw somewhere, about I can no longer believe in you as a student. We should never have to say that. We should never get to a point where we say, I don't believe in you, I no longer believe in you. That's not believing in ourselves. That's not believing in our ability to transform them. So what we want to do is not, that's almost like a guilt trip, making them feel bad. What we want to do is we want to say that I absolutely believe in you, but you've got to do the work, dude. You've got to put in the practice. That's your part. I know that you can do it. I have no doubt whatsoever that you can be the next Satriani or Steve Vai or whoever you want to be. I have no doubt it's achievable. They were once upon a time just like you are now. They were right where you are today. That's where they started. and they are where they are now because they did the practice that it took to get there. We're all where we are because of the practice that we've done. Okay, so Joachim, what's the one thing that you would do with the intro that would make them want to practice more, or to push the practice?
I was just thinking, well, if they're very young, you could have the challenge, the 365-day challenge, and then say if you can do practice for 10 days, then you get a reward. You get something. They get something they want. They're looking forward to.
Excellent. Have like a 10-day challenge, or let's say the first week have a 7-day challenge. You know, so okay, I'm going to give you a 7-day challenge. If you can practice every day between then and now, I've got something for you next week. Try that on little kids. You'll see. You see what happens. I've got something special for you next week. If you can do this every day, fill in your practice log, 10 minutes a day, I've got something for you. You know? And that gets you past the first week. Come up with something the second week. You know, and you might give them a pick. You might give them. Kids love balloons. I know my daughter does. Might give them a balloon, a G-force balloon or something. You know, you might give them something to colour in. It was funny because I went to the dentist yesterday. My daughter really wanted to go to the dentist with me, and I was like, "You don't know much about dentists, sweetheart. You know, if you want to go to dentist." Well, no, I really want to go. I really want to go. I said, "You really want to go?" And she said, "Yeah, I really want to go." She had to go to school, and I thought, "Wow, that's interesting." I said, "So why do you really want to go?" She said, "Oh, because I want to get the colouring in again." So last time she went, which was a year ago, mind you, they gave her a sheet of paper and a colouring in, so pencils to colour in. She remembers that, right? They didn't do it because she's obviously too young to getting fillings or anything like that. But so she had no painful stuff done, so there's no bad memory of the dentist. It's only the good stuff that she remembers. But she really wanted to go, and she remembered a year later. So this is the kind of thing that you want to get your students enthusiastic about. Giving them something, have some sheets that they can maybe colour in for the little kids, maybe colouring in notes or characters or whatever. So just, again, thinking outside the box. So that's great. I love it. Okay, so we'll say a 7-day challenge for kids, right? You can even try it on adults. Give them a 7-day challenge. Just no prize, but just say, look, I like to have what I call the 7-day challenge. I like to see if you can do 7 days of practice in a row this first week. Let's see if you can do it. Okay, so Daniel, what would you do, Daniel, in the first week to increase the odds of practice happening?
I try and make it really, really clear to parents and students both what practice actually means, because I think a lot of people aren't really completely clear on that. So I always pose them. It's usually one of the first questions that I pose to them in the lessons, like, do you know what practice is?
Right, I love it. That's very powerful. Is get your student. See, there's a big difference between telling someone something and them telling you something. When they tell something back to you, and that's kind of what I'm doing here, is that when they say something to you, that becomes their truth. So if they're telling you the value of practice, that's extremely powerful. Thank you, Daniel. That's fantastic. But just that exercise there, the 5 of you giving back and throwing up there, is just really opened up, this conversation, because these 5 points. Take those 5 points and use them, and I doubt you're going to have many problems at all. You know, that will probably get 85% of your students across the line, just what we talked about there. The only thing I would add, because I should throw something in too, is to coach the parents, as I was saying, in what to do. Okay, what to do at home, and make it clear to the parents that their child is not always going to want to practice, and what to do about it. How to get their child to want to practice. If you can do that, if you can pull that one off, then you will have very few problems, because the parents will come to you the following week and say, wow, that worked. Fantastic. It's like I said to you guys with the flyers. Go out and do the flyers, and you'll get students. You go out and do the flyers. Wow, I'm getting inquiries. That works. Fantastic. Problem solved. So as I give you things that I know that work, because that's what I try and do, is just give you things that I've tested and know work. As you do those things, that's why you don't see, I haven't until recently started talking about Facebook advertising and things like that, because I have to test it. I've been testing it now for about 2 years, and that's the same, and now I'm confident that those ads will work for you. But it's the same with everything, is that when I tell you, go and do this, it'll work, and then you do it and then it works for you, that's when you come back excited, because well, that was good, that worked, now I don't have a problem. And so parents, when they come to you and you solve their problem of, I can't get my child to practice, you solve that problem for them. You're not only solving that problem, guess what, they can get them to do lots of things. Clean their teeth, take a shower, go to bed, you know, whatever it is, turn the TV off. So you and those of you who are parents understand this. You understand that children, you know, getting children to do things is not always easy. They have their own ideas and their own motivations. So it's much better if you can motivate them. As they say, you'll attract more flies with honey. So just keep thinking that if you're forcing something, then you're probably doing it wrong. What you need to be doing is looking at how you can get them motivated. And with parents, what you're doing is you're coaching the parents to do this at home every day. You're coaching the parents how to actually get their children to practice. All right, so to finish off, because I think we've covered it, I'm going to take Ruby's little tip here and go around the 5 of you and ask you one thing that you got out of today. So I'll go from the other end and I'll start with you, Daniel. One thing that you got out of today.
One thing that I got out of today. Wow, I got a lot of things out of today, actually.
One thing, just one thing that you want to throw up. You can do 2 things.
I guess one of the things that I got from today was, I guess, confirmation of the idea that it's definitely a lot easier to have things kind of or implement a system from day one than it is to reintroduce it later. So behavior is a lot easier to create than it is to change.
Yep. Fantastic. Yep. So to establish the kind of or condition right from the beginning. This is how we work here. These are the boundaries. These are the rules, and children respond to that. You don't have to look at children in different situations. You know, whether it be with their parent or you know, you look at a child with the 2 different parents. Look at them with their father on their own. Look at them with their mother on their own, and you'll see the child behave quite differently depending on which parent they're with at that time. I'm talking one-on-one. And then you take them, you know, you take the child to school under a certain teacher, they behave differently. There's all this scenario, and we all do it. We all behave differently in different circumstances. You know, you might be with your mates, and you know, you might swear a lot more, or you might talk about, you know, different topics, or be a lot more kind of, you know, a lot more bravado or whatever. You know, yeah, how's it going, mate? Yeah, you know, whatever. You go to the football and you act like an idiot. Compared to when you're at the office, or you know, you're on a kind of a special at a wedding or something. You behave differently, different situations around different people. So that's great. So set the tone is really how I'd sum it up. Set the tone early. Okay, fantastic. Did you want to add a second one there, Daniel? You're quite welcome to. If you got a second, you want to add?
No, I think that's kind of that's the main thing that I got out of today. But there's a few.
Okay.
I'm gonna need to listen back to this, I think, and so I can put some other things into words a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yep. And start analysing. You know, from now, looking at, really break down and look at each student. You know, what's going wrong here? How's this working? What could I have possibly done wrong, or how can I fix this now? Because you don't have to try and fix everything. You know, just even if you work on 1 or 2 students and just try to really drill down on those and say, well, how can I fix this? Here's my challenge. If you look at it as a challenge, teaching's fun, no matter what kind of student you get, because everyone's a challenge.
I remember you said to me once that when I first started, and I was having a lot of trouble with like particular kinds of students. You said to me once you figured this out, you're actually going to really enjoy those students because you'll look forward to the challenge.
Sorry.
I thought you completely insane at the time, but you're completely right. There's a few people who I've had over the last like 6 months, and it's so they've walked in with like an attitude problem, and I've sort of gone, I know your type. I know how to deal with you. You're gonna be learning whether you like it or not.
Fantastic. Yeah. 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 Fantastic. I know what you're saying. You turn them around. You've taken them from this point to this point. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, Joachim. Got from today.
Sorry.
One thing that you've gotten out of today.
Yeah. So just about how you want to be fully committed to make sure they succeed on practicing every day.
Excellent. Absolutely committed to your students. Treat them like your children. Okay. You wouldn't give up on your children, so don't give up on your students. Do whatever it takes. Right. All right. Excellent. Jeff.
Yeah, the main one really for me was things like how to approach the parents, because I get this a lot. Like, when you're talking about can you sit with your children and do it, like we go, oh, I don't know about that, and different ways to approach that, because that's one of the problems I had with that whole thing of like, oh, I haven't really got the time to sit with them while I do the lessons. That's too much.
Yeah. They want to be cooking in the kitchen or something when they're.
Yeah. Well, I actually said that to somebody the other day because of things that you said to me or said on the groups before. I said, well, even if you're not actually in the room, if you can be somewhere where you can hear them, like you say, cooking a meal, and say, well, do you practice now while I'm sitting doing this, and you can see that it's happening and what they're actually doing and whether they're doing what they're supposed to be doing on that list. Because again, I'm now starting to go through the list of things with the parents to say, okay, so we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to do that, starting off with the picking practice or whatever, and follow that, that structure through so that they do it properly.
Yeah, I would still, though, I would recommend that they focus on their child, not be cooking or doing anything else, that they're actually sitting there with the child, because what happens is that it's very hard, people, we're not terribly good multitaskers, and they know that, so and it's just going to work better if they'll get the cooking done quicker and they'll get the practice done quicker if they're not trying to do both, if that makes sense, so they're not kind of switching all the time. And this is something that's been shown in studies, that when we try and do two things, if you've got a list of things to do, you're better off doing one thing at a time, focusing on that one thing. Turn off your email, turn off your Facebook, everything. Go and do that one thing, and then come back and check all your Facebook messages or all your emails. Don't try and switch between all the time, and you'll get things done a lot quicker. So the same with parents, I would say to them, just put the cooking on hold for 10 minutes, because you don't want to start a fire in the kitchen because you were trying to help Johnny with his picking. So yeah, so that's the only thing I'd say there is and it's better to have 10 minutes one-on-one with your child and then go and do your cooking than trying to have a 20-minute practice session and 10 minutes is really too short, but if you talk 10 minutes, it's enough to get them started. It's enough to get the momentum going. Because often, I say to my daughter all the time, we're just going to do 10 minutes, sweetheart. Let's just sit down and it'll be really quick. And she'll say to me, how about 1 minute? Okay, well, let's do 1 minute and let's see how we go. But it always ends up being half an hour, always. It's just the way it adds up. It's just a matter of getting it started. So, okay, cool. Ruby.
For me, I think probably the same as Joachim. Just to be really more committed to the students. That just makes so much sense,
Okay, cool. Yeah, excellent. Right. Okay, Stu?
Yeah, pretty much most of what everybody was talking about, they were the main points. Some of the games that you mentioned too were pretty good, like Hide the Guitar, games like that. One of my students has got a 3-year-old son that comes to the lessons sometimes, and he just sits there and holds his guitar and has fun. So I reckon some of those games he might enjoy as well. Things that can play at home.
Yeah, look, it's all about, like I said, coaching the parents in games to play. And what I'd like us all to do is maybe sort of experiment and come up with ideas, and if we can create a list, then we can create a bit of a printout that we can give the parents. Here's a list of games that you can go and play with your kids, you know, guitar games, and so that turns guitar learning into a game completely. So, you know, another thing that I did with my daughter was where I cut out the notes, because like playing a scale, again, she thinks the scale is boring, right? So I cut out the notes, put them into a box, and then she picks out them one at a time. We put them in order, and then I go, okay, you got to play the notes in that order now, and she loves that, you know, because it's a game. So just keep thinking up games, keep thinking up ways that they can make the guitar fun with their parents and the practice, and that it's all happening. Okay, we're done. Thanks, guys, for coming along, and this will be up live. The replay will be up soon. And I've just so you know, I've created a page in the members site. Well, actually, I haven't created a page. It's the same page, which is an audio page, and now it says audios, videos. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting these videos on that page. So I'll put the latest video on the top each time. So they'll sort of work their way down, so you can go back and watch any of them in order from the latest to the oldest. All right. Just before I go, you've got just a couple of messages here you guys have put up. Like, how do you get around the riff junkie who just can't see the value of practice? Even the parent. Okay, that's more about the quality of the practice they're doing. The quick answer to that, I won't go into detail, but the quick answer to that is you've got to make the skills relevant to the riffs that they want to play, to the things that they're interested in. So take what they can do. Look, you know, Smoke on the Water is just, you know, the blues scale. It's the first 5 notes of the blues scale. Just show them, okay, this is the blues scale. Smoke on the Water, same thing. So you can take things that they know and implement them into demonstrating how the skill works. And so if they're having trouble with, say, a song or a riff, what I would always do is I would relate the fact that you need more scale practice or more. The thing is, you'll get sick of that riff will come and go. But if you practice a scale and practice these exercises, then as you learn a new riff or a new song, then you already have the tools that you need. That's really what it's about. It's about training as tools. So I keep pushing that message. I don't particularly care if they're at home practicing riffs, as long as they practice the scale as well and know the scale when they come. So if I can relate that riff to what I'm doing, then that's fine, as long as they can do it. Because remember, it's all about ticking the boxes. They come in, they can do this, they can do the blues scale, bang, you get the tick. If you're doing Smoke on the Water to make it happen, well, that's okay. All right. Great idea about recording lessons. Yeah, okay, good. All right, guys, thanks very much for coming, and if you've got any questions, email as always. Take care. See you.
See you guys.